Welcome to Key Conversations, the podcast where we talk about all the things to inspire you to create a sustainable and fulfilling music career. As you know, this season I am talking about all the things it takes to get a record released or to release music. And today we're going to talk specifically about the album artwork. I am really excited to have Gwen Thomas with me all the way from Amsterdam. Her artist name is Gwen Thomas, and we are going to talk about her album that just came out and the artwork and why it was so special for her. I mean, artwork in general is special. It's the thing that everyone sees. It's the thumbnail on iTunes and Spotify and all the things. So it's not special for anyone, but it's extra special for you. So thanks for being here, Gwen.
Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
Yeah. So tell me why. I mean, I think this conversation might be a little backwards. Instead of asking you your life story and all this, I think we're going to get it just by asking, why was the album artwork so important for you for this particular project? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. It all started with me being obsessed with Inktober in October of 2018, which is this thing where people on the internet, they all agree that they're going to doodle something like every day, or not necessarily doodle, could be a really nice drawing, and then share their artwork online as a way to kind of hold themselves accountable that they're really doing it every day. And I wanted to participate, but I'm not a visual artist. I am a musician, and I have experience in the past that as a musician, if you put like a lot of a different type of art online, people can get confused. It's like all of a sudden, who are you? What are you doing? I don't understand. And you lose some people. So I decided not to post my artwork. But I, at the end of the month, I had a little pile of favorite pieces of art, and they had all been doodled using my favorite highlighter pens. And so I thought, like, I really want to just share my 9 favorites, and I could picture them on Instagram in this really pretty little grid. And I wanted to get them shared, but I still hadn't like put together how. And then finally it hit me, well, like I could share each piece of artwork if there was a song attached to it. So suddenly I had this excuse to put them online as a musician. And what I ended up with was this really beautiful little Instagram style grid of like 9 individual artworks. But then as a physical product, I mean, that was kind of like the release as I wanted it to appear on social media. For the physical product, which is still important to me, even though as a very small indie artist, I don't have like a ton of reason to be releasing like vinyl or CDs. I decided that the album would be called I Am a Highlighter Pen, which is a lyric from one of the songs on the album. And that's when I got the idea that I should release the album actually as like a highlighter pen called I Am a Highlighter Pen. So the album comes out as this like jumbo print of the artwork that I originally posted on Instagram and on social media, these little drawings that I made with highlighter pens and the accompanying highlighter pen itself, and a couple other little things that are gathered together in like a little envelope.
So cool. Do you have an album hanging around that you could just go like this? Because I'll pop up mine.
Yeah. Oh, yours is also
so I love this integration. There it is. So that's the album cover. Love it. And I think that there's something really important that you touched upon here was that you were able to like connect your story, make it really personal. And then also bring it into a physical product, which I just think is really, really brilliant. And you made a booklet, and now you're selling highlighter pens. Like it's just like this very natural, organic, obvious path from getting the record and then having these supplementary things. So I think that thinking outside the box like that is really a great idea. And it's a great way for fans to engage with you more. It's a great source of income. Like all of those things are really, really great ideas.
Thank you.
I want to just toss out, and I know you've done other music, just some possibilities for other people, especially, I mean, I don't do any art whatsoever. Like you don't even want to see me draw a stick figure. So for me, this, the record I'm working on right now, Luminary, is my 5th record. In the past, the first couple were photos of me that I had an art editor sort of fancy up, and they did the fonts and the title and my name. And then the inside of the album, they just took photos and kind of just made them artsy and faded them and did gradients and things like that. I realized for my last record, inevitably it was a partnership. Every single song was a duet and a co-write with a variety of different people. Some people you listeners might know, Ari Herstand is a collaborator, and Cindy Harvell and Brian DeVoe, who's the lead singer from 9 Days. This is the story of a girl, that guy. So there were like some really cool collaborations there. And I was like, why would I make the album cover about me again? So I reached out to an artist friend of mine who actually works in advertising, and who I just love his doodles and drawings that he would post on Facebook. And he agreed to sort of take the idea of the record, and he came up with something, and I didn't know what I wanted. And he ended up doing this drawing of working out the word, the record's called Inevitably. And I have one here, and 2 drawings of 2 birds, which was just such a perfect collaboration. So it ended up looking like this. It had nothing to do with my face or anything. And it was just, it really, I think we had like 1 round of revisions, which was
That is gorgeous. I love that artwork.
Thank you.
I've seen it before as well, but it's just really beautiful.
And there are 2 little eggs, and it's kind of like one song and 2 people. Like, he just really got it, and I was really, really lucky. That's Austin Wee, and he is amazing. This time around, I just want to share my quick story of this, because I know there's so many different ways to go around getting your album art. I knew that being in the new age category, there had to be something. I looked at so much new age cover art, and so much of it is so terrible. But I did notice a theme. There are some water themes, celestial themes, and I knew that luminary to me, it one of the definitions, there's 3 definitions of the word, or 2 really. And one of them is being a source of light, especially, and this is according to the Oxford Dictionary, especially a celestial body like the sun or the moon. So I knew that there was going to be this celestial thing. I have a small obsession with the moon anyway. A lot of the song titles are related to celestial things. So I was like, okay, I don't want to be really boring, but I would love a moon in there. So I found this artist who had just this very cool, I think I found him in a female entrepreneur group that I was in. Someone recommended him. His art was gorgeous. We got our contract together. He was doing it for like very low price. I was surprised how low priced he was. And he sent me something right away, and it was this big lotus with a moon above it. And it felt very much like, this is a yoga, or this is a meditation record. And I've been told specifically that this music is not for meditation. It sort of pierces the list. I think it is for meditation, but it's not standard.
Right.
It's not what you would expect with meditation. So I didn't want to be misleading. So I was like, oof, we have to go back. So then he came back, and he's like, I listened to the whole record, and this is what I drew. And he had a concept that ended up being very similar to where we ended up. This girl is actually me. It's a photograph my sister took in a boat harvesting moons. And one of the tracks is called Moon Harvest,
Nice.
and sort of collecting your own light and being the source of light. But it wasn't, it was a drawing. It looked a little lo-fi, and we were going back and forth. And he finally was like, I'm going back and forth too much. You need to pay more for this. And I just didn't feel like the art was going in the direction I wanted. And then I went back to the entrepreneur group and said, hey, does anyone have any advice? Like, I'm not speaking the right language. And as a composer, I understand this so much. My job is to not make the director feel like they have to speak music to me. My job is to interpret that. And I was having a hard time speaking art to this person, or maybe he was having a hard time interpreting. I don't know. And I was feeling very unexpressed. And so finally, someone in the entrepreneur group said, hey, I'm actually an artist. Let me take a look. And she wrote back to me. She was like, okay, after 10 minutes, I went to all these stock photo sites that artists use. And she's like, and I found this like harvesting moon for, like, it wasn't something that he came up with, like in terms of drawing. Like, he found, like, I thought he had like drawn the moon. Like, no, it was all like stock art that he pulled in. And I was like, okay, vector art, that's a thing. It's fine. And she was like, I also went and looked at all of the top selling new age albums. And here's a common denominator. There's something big and there's something centered, like a big butterfly, or there's a big something. And I was like, oh, interesting. She's like, so make the moon big before it was very small. So she gave me a lot of really great tips, but she was unavailable to actually like do the work. So I decided to finally hire Disc Makers, because Disc Makers has an art service, and they say unlimited revisions. I actually went down 8 times with them because they were not quite getting some artistic things like fades and gradients. And it was a little difficult as well to get the language going. And then they're like, we need to charge more. So beware when they say unlimited, ask, is this actually unlimited? Or do you decide that you're just getting tired of going back and forth? So it was a little bit of a rough ride for me to get Luminary the way I like it. And I do like it. And I still am like, I could probably have had 20 more comments. So at some point you just need to be really clear with your artist if you're working with an artist and not doing it the way Gwen did, which is herself, which I'm super jealous of those who can. And then you have to get it in the right format. So Gwen, tell me, once you had okay, this is this grid of these nine images, how did you then prep it to actually be the album cover on Spotify? Like, tell me a little bit about what you had to do.
Okay, well, the first step was that I had the drawings were made with a highlighter pen on a piece of printer paper, and it was like fading with time. And I was a little bit worried, like, how will I make these into graphics? So the first thing I had to do was, it'll be hard to see in the video version of this, but I had to make like graphicized versions of the artworks. These that I made on the final version are actually, like, I went in and taught myself how to make a drawing into a drawing on my computer using Apple Pages. I designed the whole thing using Pages, which is like not high-tech fancy at all. It's like dorky.
I love it.
But I've gotten like really proficient at it now, and I can make a lot of cool stuff. But after that, I had to then like figure out, okay, I can't invest in like fancy software for this. So I was basically screenshotting a lot of stuff and then like recompiling it into Pages and then taking a big screenshot of all 9 images is how I ended up with this, which I think is like probably a really frowned upon way to do it, but it looks beautiful in person, so I do not care. And then to make the version for distribution was really interesting because I sent this in as is I used DistroKid, and it was going through just fine, no problem. And then at a certain point, things like there was like it got stuck. I don't know, something was weird. And then they informed me that because one of my images, the middle one, has text on it, and that text is not the name of my album, that they were like, this doesn't compute and we don't think that that's okay. So it's like a song title because that was just part of one of the doodles that I had, and I didn't want to alter them at all. That was important to me. So for the version that's on iTunes and Spotify and stuff, I ended up having to just alter the artwork a tiny bit by adding like my artist name and the album name. So I did that just on the top and the bottom. And it was actually kind of cool because this was a super last minute thing. Like I did not have time to overthink it at all. And believe me, I could. When you've like worked for so long on doing your own artwork, you can really overthink it. But what I ended up doing was taking like the same little, I kind of made like a little logo on accident out of what I had to put on my highlighter pen itself. So I just like repurposed the GT Thomas from the pen and the I Am a Highlighter pen from the pen, and then stuck those on there, and I like eyeballed it, and then I was like, it's good, and I sent it in, and I had it finished within like 2 hours of when they said that it, like I didn't have any more time to lose on getting it out there through the distributor. So I was like, okay, I have to do this. And I actually I learned a really valuable lesson that day about just done is better than perfect, as we hear often. And
one of my favorite sayings. Yep.
And I really love the way it turned out. I'm not disappointed. So
that's awesome.
But I also will say one more thing about like doing all of this artwork myself. I don't consider myself a visual artist or a graphic artist by any means, but through the process of just like futzing around with it myself, I learned a lot of the terms for like what the stuff is that I want it to come out as. So like, for example, you used the term gradient before. I mean, I think for some people that's a really obvious term, but for other people, they've never heard the term gradient. So if you're like a musician and you want to start communicating about your artwork desires, then it might help you to just investigate palette inside of Pages or some program just a little bit, like play with something, maybe doodle outside of your medium a little, just to see if you can like learn a couple of the terms. Then it might help you. I don't know, it could also maybe
I know
not
I
help,
think that's really great. It comes back to the thing that I was struggling with most, which was just like trying to translate what I wanted into an artistic vision. And I had a Pinterest board, and the first artist I had was like, these are totally contradicting each other, and which may mean we just weren't a fit. I've worked with other people that can pull out exactly, oh, I see the common denominator. And so that is what it is. But I do think, knowing any sort of program with any little bit of arts term, and I'm good with Photoshop, and I can do some digital art, but in terms of creating, I definitely wanted this to be more inspired than something I was forcing.
Yeah.
And so I gave the pictures for the inside. Nothing is too crazy special, but the cover was really important to me, knowing that this was going to be primarily a digital release. And so you were not going to be seeing a lot of the insides. And I had a run of 300, so that, mostly for promotional purposes, and I wanted to keep it simple. So, and then for me, the CD was also important. Because I have this moon thing, I just really wanted the inside to be this perfectly
Oh, that's
circular,
great.
everything moon wise. And I'm just happy, and the OCD part of me is happy that it's centered, like that. Someone was like off center, and I'm like, do you want me to have a stroke? Like off center the moon on a CD? Are you kidding? Like, okay. Have you met me? So yeah, so long story short, there's a lot of ways to go. You can go with an individual artist, you can go with your own gut, and just, even if you're not an artist, you can create something and be like, hey, this is working. Or you can go with a company like Disc Makers. They don't even tell me the artist's name, so the credit is actually like Art by
Wow.
Disc Makers, and they really were truly wonderful to work with. My own neuroses definitely got in the way, and they were great, like giving me like, hey, we've got like 2 more revisions before this. And I was like, okay, that's probably a good thing. And luckily one of my best friends from college, who's actually an art therapist from high school, is an art therapist. And she, I gave her even a credit as my art advisor. I would send stuff to her and say, hey, I'm not liking the blue blob thing at the bottom. And she would say, oh yeah, they need the fog gradient to go at this
Oh,
level.
that's helpful.
So I really needed to partner with someone and I would just text her, FaceTime her, like, here's the revisions that they sent. And she's like, cool, we're close. And so she helped me get really picky too, because she knew me well enough to know my aesthetic and the direction we were going. And then she also had the art terms to help. So I think it
That
comes
is
down to,
helpful.
yeah, just working with someone that you can have a conversation with, who's willing to go back and forth, but also knowing the parameters, so you don't drive them bananas and you don't overstep how much you're paying versus how much time they're spending on it. So those are my lessons I learned a lot this time around. And I didn't think I would, being like, oh, this is my 5th record, no big deal. But every time, something new. Any last thoughts that you would have, or advice you would give to musicians who are thinking about doing their own album, or anything you saw in the process that you might want to share before we find out where we can find you on the internet?
Yeah, 2 things popped into my mind. One is like, for me, the reason that I did this all myself was not because I'm a control freak, in particular on this. It was really because I looked at what my options were, like put out vinyl, put out a CD, just do it digitally, I don't know. And none of that felt like it was sufficient or matched my budget or my reach. But I still, it's important to me to have a physical product. But then I was like, why do I need the physical product? And the part of the insides of this that I didn't discuss already was that I have, maybe you mentioned it, I have this workbook inside. It's an active listening workbook. So like I had a purpose behind why I wanted to make it physical, and that involved the highlighter pen. Like I wanted people to put a highlighter pen in their hand and use it, because doing that is what helped me to write the album and to make the artwork. And so I wanted to like reflect the creative process that I used itself in the actual product that people would be interacting with.
Yeah.
So that's maybe like a bit conceptual. I don't believe that every album needs to be made that way, but it got me thinking outside the box. And it also like, it made sure that why I put it on the format I put it on served a purpose. And that was really important for me. And actually, I think I just summarized like both the thoughts that I had into one thing right there. So
Awesome. Yeah. Being really clear on your purpose and what you want to convey is so important. I definitely wanted something mysterious. I wanted it to look like I was the source of the light, and which is, what Luminary is being a source of your own light. And I think that purpose was really driving me, even though I didn't have words to well articulate it to the artist. So I love that you got really clear on like what you wanted the experience to be for the listener.
Yeah.
So where can people find out more about you and your album online?
You can come find me at gtthomas.com. That's my website. All the info about my album's on there, but you can also just look on Spotify, YouTube, all the streaming platforms for the album I Am a Highlighter Pen, which
Awesome.
Hopefully should be easy to remember now. You know what my whole shtick is. So.
Amazing. I love that so much. Is there anywhere we can connect with you on social media? What's your favorite platform?
Yeah, I really love Instagram. It's great.
Yeah.
So I'm GT Thomas Music and Art on Instagram, which It's yeah, they wouldn't let
GT
me
Thomas
have
Music
GT
and Art.
Thomas music, so I had to add
Yeah,
and art on there, which is okay because I got that artwork up on there, and that's where
there
this
you
whole
go.
thing came from. So
All perfect. All those links will be in the show notes. Gwen, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I knew that you had such a different experience with your album art than I did with mine. So it was fun to sort of tell the different stories, and there's no wrong way to do it. And you clearly proved that, other than what DistroKid told you.
yeah,
Don't, which I think is actually a thing. You can't have text on your album unless it's your name
exactly.
and your album title. So that's interesting. So
It does make sense. Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for the time. I'm so tempted, for anyone that's listening, you have not been seeing this puppet that is actually the Gwen puppet sitting behind her. So when you go to her website, I'm assuming that the video where the puppet makes its debut is on your website, correct?
It better be. You know what? I'm going to double check right
Okay,
after this
you have
call.
a little
But
time. You have a little time before this goes live. So go to her website. You're going to see what that puppet is all about. Because if you've been watching on YouTube and listening on YouTube, you see this cute, adorable puppet, which is the puppet version of Gwen, and it is awesome. I'm not going to say anything else because it's a spoiler alert. So go
the
check out her
music
website.
video is called Future Moving. So yeah, GT
Awesome.
Thomas Future Moving video. Yeah.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Cheryl.